Well, my name is Cindy, and like everybody else, I don't have a plan of what I'm going to say, so it'll be interesting to see what you hear. I guess to kind of give you a bit of background or a bit of my story, when I was just about 18, my mum was diagnosed with a disease called Huntington's disease. And for those of you that don't know what it is, it's a really, really awful disease. And she's now in the latter stages of it, and she's only 58, but she lives in a nursing home and is in a wheelchair and has to be fed and changed and is pretty much incapacitated. And she's just spent a week and a half in the hospital for various random things unrelated to Huntington's. And I'm however many thousands of miles away. And my script says, oh, you should feel really guilty for not being back in Texas. And it's a true blessing that I have something like BC to be able to separate that from me and not feel guilty for not being there. And I went through for those of you that know me as kind of a very positive person. I had an amazing life really before BC came along. Despite the fact that my mom has this horrible disease, I was able to approach life with a real positive approach and learned at a very early age this kind of ass on fire syndrome. And I had a choice back when I was 18 of, well, I can live the rest of my life being really, really angry at the fact that this is just not fair, or I can just do my best to live an amazing life despite the fact that this thing is in our family and it's not going to change anyway. So I had a pretty good average. But obviously, for those of you who know anything about Huntington's, it's a genetic disease, and every offspring of a Huntington's patient has 50-50 chance of inheriting the gene. And I went through a really difficult period, kind of this time last year, for about 3 or 4 months. And I'd never experienced these emotions ever in my life. I was having panic attacks. I never even really understood before what a panic attack was. I couldn't sleep. I had a baby, however old, we have a 1-year-old, so however old he was then, 18 months now, so, and was still breastfeeding at the time, so my body was, producing food for this other human being, but I was losing weight like crazy, because I wasn't really, and on the outside, like everybody else, I thought, well, I'm Cindy, I can keep it together, I'll be fine, but was absolutely terrified, and all this time, I never wanted to know, whether or not I had Huntington's, just because I thought, well, I'm not going to live my life any differently. My life will be the exact same, whether I do or don't. I don't want to find out and then go live this, jumping off cliffs and bungee jumping and doing all these crazy things just because I don't have it. And it got so bad that I finally, and instead of going through the NHS that would take 7 months to get the results back, I paid a small fortune to do it privately. And in the end, found out that I don't have it, which, oh, thank God. I'm telling you this because it's, for me being Cindy and this really positive person, I went really, really low. And I think that if it weren't for the kind of tools of BC, it would have been so much more difficult for me to even see that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, whether or not I had Huntington's. And as scary as that situation was, that wasn't going to change. It was still going to be scary. But at least I knew that no matter what happened, I was going to be okay. And that made a huge, huge difference to me. And it's such a privilege, really, to be standing here in front of you today and to be a part of this group and to get to share a little bit about my story. And I think what I love so much about BC is that it's just simple. And a lot of it will sound to you like, oh, I've kind of heard this stuff before, and it's kind of common sense. And it kind of is, but it puts labels on stuff, and it gives you this package of something that you go off with going, okay, world, I'm prepared, bring it on. BC doesn't tell you that life is going to be perfect. It doesn't tell you that you're never going to experience anything bad. And if anything, it says, you know what, life's going to keep happening. And your script will probably have more pages after BC and in your future than it ever did before. But here's a way of dealing with whatever comes along. And instead of then looking at yourself and going, oh, you should have done this better, or you should have handled this situation in a different way, it just gives you a way to deal with whatever it is that comes along. Tom and I live in this big, beautiful house in South London. It's just wonderful, and it's kind of crazy how the circumstance came about of living in this place. We were visiting my family in Texas, and we put all our stuff in storage here in England about 2 years ago. And we made this list of everything we wanted. We wanted to be near the bar market. We wanted wood floors because we had little kids, and I was tired of cleaning sick out of the carpets every night. We wanted a big garden because we have 2.5 boys. We wanted, I can't remember, it was a big long list. And keep in mind, this was all from Texas that were organizing this. And I went online, as you do, and you talk to different estate agents, and we found this one house that looked brilliant. We thought, oh great, this will be perfect. Sent the person an email and said, oh, is this house available? And they went, well, actually, this one's taken, but how about this one? And there's these gorgeous photographs of this home, and we're thinking, oh, what about, this is brilliant, it's got everything we've wanted. It literally ticked all, right down to, is there a washing machine, is there a dryer? I mean, every box that could have been ticked, except the fact that it was £1,000 out of our price range. So I said, oh, thanks so much. It's perfect, but actually it's out of our price range. And the estate agent writes back and says, well, what's your price range? And we told her, and she said, okay. And the people that lived in our house had been trying to rent it for a while, and it had taken them some time, and I think they were just thrilled that it was a family and that we were, quite keen. And I mean, heavenly intervention, whatever you want to call it, we got this amazing house. As a result of moving to this road, we now have these 2 incredible best friends that live next door to us. Nance and I were pregnant at the same time. Our children are 3 weeks apart. We live on this magical street where, I don't know, I'm from Texas and everyone's real friendly there. When you move to London, sometimes you fall on the floor in the tube and everyone looks at you a bit strange and they go back to the table. So we've moved to this road where we know our neighbors, and not only do we know them, but they have become dear, wonderful friends, and it's just this bizarre place in the middle of London. And then about 2 or 3 months ago, we found out we have to move. And as we're renting, that kind of happens, and initially it was I was so disappointed. And in about 10 minutes time, I'd had a conversation with Tom, and we were both pretty disappointed about it, and then Tom said, well, you know what, still don't have Huntington's. And so that night we opened a bottle of champagne and we celebrated the fact that we weren't upset that we were having to leave this big, beautiful house. And it makes the biggest difference. I mean, I was telling some friends at lunch today, my script last night, I was trying to think, oh, what am I going to say? Am I going to talk about this, blah, blah, blah. One thing I get asked a lot is, my younger sister has been diagnosed with Huntington's, and a question I get asked quite often is, do you feel guilty that you don't have it and she does? And I can genuinely say that I don't, because we have an amazing relationship, and that's just not part of it. My script last night said, well, you should feel guilty for not feeling guilty. So I like to think I have a pretty good average, but it still gets to you, and I think everybody has a script whether or not you do BC. I think the thing about BC is that it just helps when your script gets more and more clever and finds different ways of trying to get to you, and just kind of helps you keep on par, one step ahead of it. So anyway, thank you all so much for coming today, and I really hope that, that somebody says something today that plants a little seed in your mind. Thank you.